I want to talk about some of the objections we have to this idea of biblical hospitality. So let's spend some time walking through some of those. And I know what these are because I've said them myself. The first one, I'm not a good cook, or my house is a mess, or I have little kids. My house is a zoo. It's not really a home. These are all ways of saying this is for somebody else, somebody in a different life stage, somebody with different gifts and different wiring. This is not really for me. And if that's the case, I want to say two things to you. Number one, there's a lot of different ways to practice hospitality. It doesn't have to look like a block party or a dinner party. It can be just taking cookies to your neighbor. It can be getting up from the high school cafeteria and walking across the cafeteria and sitting down with the kid that doesn't have any friends. It can be meeting somebody at a coffee shop or at a park so your kids can play while you chat. It can be all kinds of different ways you connect with folks. But let's just stop and think for a moment that if we're following Christ, then we've given everything to him, and that includes the place where we live. Whether you live in a studio apartment or a big McMansion, anything in between, the place you live is a gift from God, and if you give that back to him like we're supposed to, how can you use that to glorify him? And the second thing I would say to those of you who think that you're just not wired for this is, it's not about what others think of your house or your food. You're probably not going to come off like Martha Stewart or Bobby Flay, okay? It's all right. That's not the point. The point is to bring people into your life. The point is to open the door for someone else to see that there's a God who cares about them. They're not going to care that you fed them hot dogs instead of filet mignon. They're going to care that you took the time. So the second objection I want to talk about is the one that says, I'm an introvert. And I've got many friends, I've got family members who are in this category. So extroverts get all the credit, all the glory. I've been there. I'm sort of extroverted myself, although not all the way down that spectrum. I'm sort of in the middle. But let me just say a few words in defense of introverts. I love introverts. I love having them in my family and in my friend group and in my church. Because extroverts, let's just admit it, they're extra, aren't they? They always have to be the center of attention. All their stories are just so fascinating, and their jokes are all so hilarious. And didn't you think that was the funniest thing ever? I mean, didn't you? I guess I should tell it again because I don't think you got the joke. It just wears you out after a while. Whereas introverts are solid and they're thoughtful, and if they say something, you know it's going to be worth hearing. So hear me now. If you're an introvert, I did not preach this whole series just to make you feel uncomfortable. But let me also say two things to you. And the first is isn't it true that every good thing other than the grace of God, every good thing in your life, it started off being uncomfortable? Every good thing took some effort. It took some work on your behalf and some pain. And that's true of biblical hospitality. Yes, it's going to be hard for you. Harder for you than for most of us, but it'll be worth it. And the second thing is you don't have to do this alone. You can team up with somebody else. You can hire or rent or bribe some extroverted friends to come over to your house and just say, listen, I'm going to invite these people over. I'm going to provide the food. Can you just carry the ball conversationally so I don't feel awkward? That's nothing wrong with that. This can be a team sport. And it doesn't have to be a big block party. It can just be a couple of folks that come over and watch the ball game or play, Risk or Settlers of Catan with you or whatever you like to play. But do it. You'll be glad you did. And number 3, there's the objection that says, yeah, but I might get rejected. I might invite that neighbor and they might say no. And yes, that will happen at some times. And 99% of the time, it's nothing to do with you. They're busy. They don't have room in their hearts for another friend, or they are afraid they'll get rejected. They'll come over and you won't like them, or maybe they're just weird. But what do? You pray for them. You pray for another way in to their life, and then you move on to someone else, to someone more receptive. And then there's the objection that says, this sounds dangerous. I don't know these neighbors. What if they're scary people? What if something bad happens? And let's just acknowledge something societally. We've developed into a very fearful, cowardly people. We have. And it's because of the 24-hour news cycle and because of social media algorithms that are constantly funneling to us stories of fear and outrage. And we're immersed in that world. We think the world is a terrifying place. And I'll give you an example that has nothing to do with hospitality. As a church, we take trips to Israel every once in a while. We've got one coming up in November, in fact. And people will say, hey, do you really feel safe in Israel? And I'll say, yeah, I do. I feel safer there than I feel here. And they can't believe that. And I'll tell them the story of my wife the first time she went in 2020. She was terrified. She didn't want to go. And then she got there, and after a few days, she felt great. And we were sitting in old Israel, the old city of Israel. And we saw these 3 Hasidic Jewish boys run by, about 9 or 10 years old, probably younger than that, probably 7 or 8, had their black hats and their black suits and their little ringlets, and they're running, playing tag or something. There's no parents around. And Carrie says, you'd never see that in Houston or Dallas or San Antonio or Conroe for that matter. And I looked it up. This is the honest truth. You are actually 25 times more likely to be shot in America than to be a victim of terrorism in Israel. And yet, I just said that, and even if you believe it, which it's true, I bet that's not going to keep any of you from going to Walmart this week. Because you're not afraid. And you shouldn't be. My point is this, okay? Now, I'm going to go out on a limb. And please feel free to come and tell me if I'm wrong, and I will apologize. Here you go. I don't think your next door neighbor is going to be Ted Bundy. I don't think your next door neighbor is going to be Jack the Ripper or Jeffrey Dahmer or Charles Manson. Just knock on the door. Just see. If I'm wrong, if they're sacrificing goats in there and killing little old ladies, then come tell me and I'll apologize. But otherwise, why are we letting fear, irrational fear, stop us from doing what God told us to do? By all means, be wise, be discerning. Bring your trash bins up to the house after they get emptied so people know you're not out of town. Lock your doors at night. Don't let your kids hang out with people you don't know well. If somebody sets off your creepy meter, pay attention. But otherwise, don't let this irrational fear that just grips all of us stop you from enjoying a burger and some potato salad with a neighbor that needs to know the Lord. And then there's the objection that resonates the most with me, if I'm honest, and that's the one that says, I don't have room in my life. I'm so busy. I've got so many other people. I've got so much going on. I don't have the emotional bandwidth to care about somebody else. I don't have the time to invite somebody over to my house. There's not a night in my week when I'm not at the baseball field or at the school or at the job, at the office or whatever the case may be. I get that. I resonate with that myself. And I know, and I'm just going to be honest with you, when you practice biblical hospitality, it does complicate your life. Because when you bring people into your life, sometimes they become your best friends. But sometimes they bring their pain with them, and their pain becomes, to a certain extent, your pain. Sometimes they ask for things that you feel guilty that you can't deliver. And sometimes you find out that they're a little bit shady and they try to take advantage of you. And all of that is true. And yet, the only question that really matters is, are we disciples or not? The only question that really matters is, are we disciples of Jesus or not? And some of you might say, Jeff, I'm not a disciple of Jesus. I'm just here because someone invited me, or I'm here because I'm hoping if I throw God some kind of religious bone, he'll give me a blessing, or I'm here because I'm still checking out this Jesus thing. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here, and please keep coming. But for those of you who would say, yeah, of course, I'm a Christian, just understand something. There's only one kind of Christian, and that is a disciple of Jesus Christ. And to be a disciple means to emulate your teacher. To be a disciple means that your number one goal, if you are a disciple of Jesus, your number one goal is to grow up to be just like him. And what did Jesus do? Why was the story of the Good Samaritan so powerful? Not just because it is so artfully told in the right situation, not because it has that great literary technique of surprising us, of subverting our expectations, the twist ending at the end, right? That's not the reason it's so powerful. The reason it's powerful is because Jesus didn't just tell it, he lived it.